Well, hello and welcome again to the Skill Work Forum. As always, my name is Tim. I'm joined with my partner, Brett. We have a special guest with us today, Mr. Kevin Bailey. So here on this podcast, the Skill Work Forum, we really try to get together and have a conversation about things surrounding the skilled trades, about the staffing gap, how to fill that, how to address it. And a big part of that is your team, is your staff attracting it. And we're in the middle of a three-part podcast series here. In the first part, we encourage you to go check that out. It was really good. Mr. Tom Kosnick from Vices Group joined us. In this second one, we're going to talk about, okay, now that you've attracted that, how do you retain that talent? How do you keep them on board? And as I mentioned, our guest today is Kevin Bailey. He's a builder of teams. He's a very successful career. Most recently, took over and built from the ground floor a whole new sector for a company from scratch. So he's currently serves as Vice President of Raka Rentals. He's in Omaha, where we're located as well. But he also invests in a lot of other things that I think will have value in our conversation here. So the whole idea today, Kevin, is now that you've got people, how do you keep them? How do you build a team? How do you retain them on board? And I'll kick it over to you. Anything you want to say to introduce yourself and this topic in general before we jump in?
I think you did a great job of the introduction piece. I've been with Raka Rentals for 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I guess we're coming on 4 real soon here. And I love the conversation point. It is really important as we're building teams of what it looks like to not just bring that talent on board, but how do we keep them? Because we all know that hiring people is one of the biggest challenges that we have. So let's not have to do it more frequently by not keeping the right people on our team once we get them there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crucial thing, and especially today when it's a real challenge to find the right people. We all know what the gap looks like. There's tons more open jobs than there are people out there. Finding the right one and getting them on board, man, you can't afford to swing and miss on that. And getting them. I just think too many focus on landing the fish and not worrying about, taking care of them. So what do you think is the main way, and this is a big question, but how do you motivate your team? I mean, motivation is a big part, right? Yep. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, really it starts in the interview process. When we decide that we are going to have an open position, whether it's backfill or we're growing a business, we really look at what type of people do we want to bring on board. So for us, culture is a big deal. We want to get the right person right out of the gate. It's not as much about the skill set that they have from the previous places that they've worked. It's really the type of character of the person that they are. So we really want to lean into the type of person that they are. What's their attributes that have made them successful, and are they going to fit with our culture? We know that we can teach the ins and outs of our business, but who's the individual? So when we think about motivation, we really want to start to understand what does motivate them, and we're not afraid to ask that question based on the role it's in. For salespeople, of course, they better be coin operated a little bit.
Yeah.
Do they have a desire?
What was that, coin operated?
Coin operated. Meaning they better have a desire to make money. The more that we put in, the more they're going to give us as well. So we start to ask those questions right away and really learn, how do they want to be motivated? Because each person's different. And I think one of the biggest difference between leadership and management is let's lead the way the person wants to be led. We don't manage everybody the same way. It's what drives you to be successful at work. Is it words of affirmation? Is it the awards? Is it coin operated and you want to make more money? So we start figuring those things out right away and then continue to build on it as we progress with that employee.
Seems so simple, but how many of us actually, we make a lot of assumptions.
We do.
Because we think people are motivated the way we are.
Yeah.
Right? And our previous guest talked a little bit about that. We tend to hire people to think like us, and we think that everybody's motivated the same way. So.
Well, and you tend to kind of early, I think, in your leadership, journey, you tend to manage everybody or lead everybody the same way. Yeah. When the reality is you got to learn your people and you got to do it differently. But it's kind of along that line. So, I think I'm going to give the quote credit to Marcus Buckingham, but somebody said people leave managers, not companies.
Yeah.
And so do you think that's a true statement? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, man, Marcus Buckingham is so cool. He's got another one that I've really looked at thinking about performance appraisals. When you do a performance appraisal, 60% of it is actually your performance for that employee. So you're really measuring yourself through that employee. And I think about that quite a bit. So this has changed so much post-COVID. The type of process that you go through when you're managing people and how you're leading them, because we're not with them all the time. I don't know about how you guys are if you've got remote employees, but
a lot.
Yeah. When they're remote.
Well, I mean, in the sense that our guys are all over the country.
Right. So it was a lot easier when everybody was in the building at times and you would see one another in the buildings. You built relationships with them. Now you've really got to be intentional with creating that space to have the conversation with them to make sure that you as a leader are the right leader for them. You're leading them the way that they want to be led. But then also the other people that they're interacting with, what do those touch points look like as well? So for us, it really comes down to making sure that our managers and our leaders, the people that are leading people, are having those one-on-one meetings, not just performance reviews. We don't want to do it annually. We want to have daily meetings with our teams to make sure they're in the right spot. Are we having the types of conversations that are going to promote growth and elevate that employee to the level that we want them at? And hopefully, if we've got the motivation right from the beginning, to the level that they want to be at as well.
In the last year or so, or maybe early last year, was more frequent touch points. I think, to your point, the old days of even semi-annual performance reviews, which I think are still important, but those frequent touch points. So I do a weekly, I call it a 15-minute stand-up. Those that know me means that don't sit down because it takes up too much time. And I ask, what are you loving? What are you loathing? What are you working on? Where do you need my help? But I think it's that frequency of letting them, and I have some of my direct reports that abuse the 15 minutes, but they just need to sometimes.
They're salespeople sometimes. So.
That's great. That's great. And I think other people in our organization have adopted that. And organizationally, we have stand-ups for teams because it's individual, but it's also teams and just staying connected. They don't have to be long. I mean, if you have frequent short meetings, it prevents the very long, I got to have a difficult conversation with you sort of meeting. So you talked about that. I want to hit on that a little bit more, but going back to, when we do lose somebody, when somebody leaves our company, I think traditionally it's like, oh, we're sorry to see you go. We're going to do an exit interview. And that gets filed away because it's an HR checklist. I got to do an exit interview, for liability if you ever come back. But I mean, how important is it for us to really learn, even if it's best that individual, maybe there's a better place for them to go, but learning about what can you take away to get better when you lose somebody, when somebody leaves? Yeah.
So we've got a lot of what I'll call this in the skilled labor area, right? We've got a lot of technicians, drivers, yard coordinators, which are more tactical positions within our organization. We don't have a lot of high, even mid-management or high management levels. So very rarely do we lose the people that are in that kind of mid to upper level. But we do lose a lot of technicians to new jobs and drivers, people that are in more of those tactical roles. So what we want to learn during that process is, I'll back up just a little bit. We really have built a self-policing culture. When the shortstop makes an error, that's okay. But the second baseman's probably going to get on the second time that shortstop makes an error. Says, hey, you're part of this team. We've got to get better in these areas. And that's also with our attitude, our effort, the way that we conduct ourselves throughout our organization. So most of the time we've heard about some of the errors that they've made leading up to the big conversation that we're going to have. What we want to learn more is where's the opportunities where we could have trained better that would have kept somebody to stick around a little bit longer. The areas where we have fallen short in building a business from the ground up, we didn't build all the training material right away. That's something that we've kind of built as we've been flying this plane for a little while. So we know we've got gaps in that area. And that's what we hear predominantly on the team that I'm part of now is I just wasn't trained properly from the very beginning. And that's on us as leaders. We've got to make sure that we're building a training program so that we can retain that talent, because it's very easy to go turn a wrench somewhere else and even make a few dollars more, deliver a piece of equipment. And we don't want to lose people if they fit our culture. But most of the time, when we have an employee that leaves, they're really not a culture fit for our organization.
To pull on what you had mentioned there earlier, to teach that a little bit. So your organization, you believe in daily tag ups, team stand ups. How do you run that now? Why is that important?
So we do good meetings. So it's very similar to what you described. We're asking, I think I stole that from Greg Harris in one of our Bible studies,
good.
The good meeting.
It's a good framework. We use it.
Yeah. So same framework, which is goals, opportunities, objections, and decisions that need to be made. I have those daily with my team. It's a 15-minute meeting, just like you described, first thing in the morning. We're going through those three things. I tend to keep my hierarchy very low. I've only got 2 direct reports. I just don't want a widespread. And I ask the same thing from our leaders is if we get more than 8 people that are reporting directly to us, it makes it very hard to have those quality conversations that are intentional. 15 minutes turns into 4 hours every day when you're having them with your teams. And those conversations are where we're figuring out what do we need to do. Then the next step with that would be our managers go have those same meetings with our team. So when it comes to sales reps, it's a weekly conversation. When it comes to our technicians, we do stretch before the day starts and do a safety conversation each morning. They're asking those same questions in their regular rhythm that they're having with their teams as well.
So, in that daily stand-up rhythm, some pushback I've heard over the years are like, these are pointless. We say the same thing we said yesterday. What's the point?
Yep.
So I always push back and go, you're not asking the right questions.
Yep.
You're not, if people go into any meeting and they don't think it's valuable, particularly these. So have you heard that before? Like, what's the point?
Yeah. Accountability is huge. Like you can say anything you want, but the actions have to match. So taking feedback is really critical for us to be able to grow. We don't want that to be the same repetitive meeting. The framework of it is, but we want to be able to check things off that list as well. So we use 90 for that right now. We're putting all of those into 90 so that we can go back and look at and see the things that we've accomplished over time. Pile up a lot of small wins so that we can have a big victory at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So Brett, the idea of, I hear what you're saying, I'm going to actually take action and fix that versus just one ear and out the other.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Maxwell says true communication only happens when the other person takes action.
Yeah.
And so Maxwell has a lot of quotes, and I like to use most of them. And so, but
wait a minute, you told me you made that one.
Well, I tried it. I take the credit for a few of his quotes. But so, how do you guys encourage? Kind of in the line, we'll quote another guy. Pat Lencioni, who runs a table group, wrote a book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We took our whole team through that a year or two ago because I feel very strongly it sounds simple, but the concept of healthy conflict and having people truly voice their concerns without becoming personal and that type of thing. But how do you, in your organization, how do you encourage employees to voice their concerns without it becoming just a moan and groan session?
Yeah. So we all know the world that we live in. There's a lot of technicians and drivers, and they get very emotional at times. So most of ours are heated conversations, but that's okay. We want that good conflict, right? Let's bring it to the table. It really does come down to the action. We will use the same format we use in any conflict resolution. Like, let's remove the emotion as quickly as we can. Start getting this to let's deal with the facts. What are we up against? What's the impact that it has? What does it look like for our customer facing side? So externally and internally. And then what can we do? Bring a solution to it as well. So if you're going to bring a problem, please bring a solution with it as well. If you're just here to complain, we're probably in the wrong spot and we need to get to the right spot. And how are we going to do that? By removing the emotion and dealing with the facts that are in front of us, whether it's contract integrity or customer challenges that we have. What is it that prevented us from being able to be excellent in this scenario?
I think part of what we learned in healthy conflict is, you want to have conversations before the emotions get past the point where you're not really hearing or listening or receiving. Another quote that resonates with what we just talked about from Andy Stanley, and this is a good quote. He said, leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So any kind of discussion with an employee performance review or whatever, if you're not to retain, we're talking about retaining people. If you don't actually listen and take action on what they say, then you're going to pretty much be surrounding yourself with a bunch of people that are just head nodders and you're not really advancing.
Yeah, we use the listen to learn and respond in love. And that can sound kind of weird when you're in the business setting, right? But it's listen to learn and respond in love. So typically, let's just look right at the fruits of the spirit for that. Like, what are they? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. We know what they are, but self-control is one of those as well. So how are we going to respond with control in those scenarios that are going to allow us to remove the emotion and make sure that we're responding in a way that doesn't align with really God's best for all of us? We want to put a business practice in place that allows us to experience his best in everything that we do.
Yeah, that's great. And the idea of if I'm a leader and if I'm not really willing to listen to hard things, we just had a discussion yesterday or the day before with my direct reports. And I'm like, the question was asked, how can I do my job better to help you? Give me something to do better.
Yep.
And I mean, it was great to hear that. And some of the stuff is like, it's good to hear that there's some things you can do better.
Sure.
And how important is that to retain your team so that they know, hey, I can actually speak into this and somebody hears me?
It's the open door policy for me. I mean, my door is never shut unless I'm on a call that shouldn't be heard outside those walls. It's open all day long, and everybody knows that they can walk into my office at any point. And, as leaders, I'm busy. I don't want to be interrupted. But at the end of the day, it's my responsibility and our team's responsibility to make sure our doors are open so that people can come in and vent if they need to. And we're going to change the direction of that. We're going to be the thermostat in that conversation versus the thermometer. But we want it to be an open door policy. Come tell us what we can do better. And then putting that into place with the actions that match up to it. A lot of times we hear, what's in it for me? Why do I need to do this? How is this going to make our team better? And that's where vision comes in of like really explaining what does it look like for us to be excellent for the customers, because we're trying to provide. The only thing different with our product than our competitor's product is the decal that we put on it. It's the exact same piece of equipment. So we have to have a white glove experience if we want to be able to maintain the customer relationships that we've built that starts with our people and the service that we provide. So we know that our people it's so important for them to carry the culture of, we want to be better. What's in it for you? We want to be better so that we can gain more trust, accountability, respect from the customers that have chosen to do business with us. And that starts with you because you're the frontline employee in a majority of those conversations.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a lot of conversation, about the different generations. I actually think the young, the Gen Zs, and the millennial generation, it's arguably the smartest generation. They're going to be the most tech savvy. They're going to be, the reality is, we did a podcast, a guy that wrote a book, I think it was called The Aliens Amongst Us.
Gen Z.
The Gen Zs. And he was very pro, but it's just the reality that they are different. They approach work different. They want to be mentored differently and all those kinds of things. How do you manage through the different generations? And as we talked before, leading requires us to lead people differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, meet them where they're at, right? I agree with you 100%. The ability that this inbound generation has, and even the people that are in the workforce right now, they're so tech savvy. And the construction industry as a whole is not very adaptive to technology still. There's a lot of technology that's being used in that space, but as far as we're still a pretty immature industry as it relates to technology. The fact that we've got drivers that are on iPads now, things like that. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And especially when they come from the construction background versus like 3PL or something where they've been used to that for a long time, right. UPS, something like that. It blows their mind when we hand them an iPad and say, you guys got to check in with this. You've got to make sure that you're adding the right information. We want to meet them right where they're at. So it comes back to somewhat of that training, understanding the people that we're working with. How do they want to be coached? How do they want to be motivated? Us personally, this is crazy, but to meet them where they're at, emojis in our conversations with them when we're texting mean a lot to them, of putting stuff in there the way that they communicate with their peers. And it's not that we're trying to be somebody other than we are. We want to be authentic with our style of leadership, but we've got to make sure that we're leading those people appropriately and allowing them to grow. I personally believe that the reason that there's so much shade being thrown on that generation is because us as leaders have done a poor job of leading those people and bringing them up through the organizations. Or a lot of people look at them as, they don't know what they're doing. They don't have the work ethic that we have. But to your point, Brett, like flexible work hours are important. Being able to go do things with family are important. So does that mean we have to hire more people in some cases so that somebody can go spend time with their family? Yeah, we're going to make that investment so that our team can be healthy.
Yeah, that's a great topic and great comment. I do agree that I think this generation that's coming up, the latest, I think Gen Z is 26, 27, and, down into the late teens right now. Just they're inquisitive. They want to learn. They want to take on new challenges. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty. I think I'm really excited about this generation that's coming up, and we can learn a lot from them.
I think one thing that's really important that we've built is, what's the progression look like for them to grow? That's what they want to know, is how am I going to grow within the organization? So we've built different titles, different positions that allow them to progress through the organization. And if they meet the requirements and we're coaching them appropriately, they will move to that next step in the progression very quickly. So it's important for us to have those different roles established and an outline laid out to say, okay, I know we hired you at this role. You want to move to this one. Here's what needs to happen, but we've got those positions available. And that took some time for us to build because, as you said in the introduction of this, we built this from the ground up. Yeah. So we hired the core team, got them established, and then we started to fill in the areas to say, okay, how do we continue to build this pipeline internally so that we don't have to look external for every employee that we bring on board?
Is the skilled labor shortage hurting your company's bottom line? Skillwork is the premier staffing agency focusing exclusively on skilled labor. Our team of highly skilled workers augments your existing teams for elevated impact and decreased downtime. Partnering with hundreds of facilities in more than 30 states, we deploy our traveling industrial technicians to work for you on a contract basis. Our philosophy is simple: to honor God in all we do, bring respect back to the skilled trades, and positively impact those around us. For more information on how Skillwork can deliver the top labor talent you need, visit skillwork.com or call us at 402-447-7058. Call us today to see how Skillwork can work for you.
As far as retention, what we're talking about here, the ability to give those people that come on board a pathway to success. Yep. And that is crucial to this, every generation, but more so this one. And just our company, we're recognizing that we've made changes recently to provide a pathway and some of our roles even right now, because when we started, it's like one person does three things and there was no, the pathway is get us to the next customer. But we're putting that in place now, recognizing that some of our roles are like, there needs to be a path forward. So that's really crucial as part of retention. And one other thing on that, I want you to speak into Kevin, because I know you're you're athletically minded. You realize that, hey, we got to celebrate wins. How important is it to celebrate wins, but not to make it raw T-ball awards every day? How do you balance that?
Gosh, so we use NPS surveys with a lot of our customers. And when we get those back and it says something along the lines of, hey, X driver did a phenomenal job, this sales rep is one of our favorite people. We see it on LinkedIn. We really go out of our way to make that a big deal with them, because they have carried our culture. They are the frontline employee. We're getting the recognition from our customers that this employee has stood out above and beyond. We want to make that a big deal. So on our quarterly call, we go through a section of celebrations with the entire team of the things that make them a great employee, the things the customers are saying about them, and then what's their value to our company and what have they meant to us up to this point.
So it's more, hey, we're going to individually call you out when, close to when that happens. Versus some rhythm of quarterly sort of thing. Or is it a mix?
It's a mix. We do the one-on-one with them, thanking them, and then when we've got the whole team together, we celebrate in public.
That's a good thing.
Good. How do you deal with low performers? And, obviously the concern is always the more we as leaders tolerate the low performers, the reality is it demotivates our high performers. Or do you, kind of lay that all out there? You can kind of speak into how you guys work with that.
Yeah. Again, the self-policing portion of that is so critical because we hear it from our team. Unfortunately and fortunately in our business, safety is a big deal. We love the fact that we've got a culture that we built it from the very first thing we established was we have to operate safely. We're around big, heavy equipment. You can get killed very quickly. So safety is one of those areas that we're looking at early on. Is this employee bought into the culture that we have? And unfortunately, a lot of times they're not. So that's usually where we start to see disciplinary stuff happen, at least with our tactical employees. And when's the first time that you should fire an employee? The very first time you think you should fire an employee. We start having that conversation right away. And we've got two different methods that we go down: performance plans, coaching plans. Performance plans, very rarely do people come off of a performance plan. But when we put a coaching plan into place, now we've got some regular rhythms of when we're meeting with them, what types of conversations. We've put metrics into place of where they have to hit, what they have to hit in order to see their position stay with the their term with that position stay with the organization.
Yeah, so on the other end of that spectrum, obviously not everybody's getting the good job, so we also have the other side, the low performers, and obviously we all know that if we don't address the low performers, it does demotivate our high performers. So how do you guys kind of manage that? What's your course of correction?
So for us, we've really got two different paths that we go down. There's a performance plan and a coaching plan. Performance plans, very rarely do people come off of performance plans. But when we put a coaching plan into place, now we've got something that we're building a regular, every 2 weeks we're meeting with that employee. So it's usually a 30, 60, 90, depending on what the term is. We're meeting with that employee every 2 weeks to go over the metrics that we've established that say, you've got to hit these in order to continue to move forward. When it's coaching related, more than likely that employee is going to move off of that coaching plan. But when it's performance plan, there's a few other red marks on their record that's going to prevent us from moving that person.
That's interesting. So is it one or the other, or is it if you don't get off the coaching, go into performance, and performance is basically like this is your last opportunity? Or is it?
You can progress from coaching to performance. It's not going to go the other way. You're not going to go from performance to a coaching plan. So once you get through the coaching plan, if you haven't hit those numbers that we've established, and not just numbers, sometimes it's attitude and things like that, then very rarely is that employee going to stick around for very much longer.
So on that question that Brett asked, would you adhere to fail fast? In other words, if you can tell within the first 60, 90 days that employee is not going to be a long-term fit, we
will move people on very quickly. So we know within 30, 60, 90 days if that employee is going to be able to maintain what we're looking for or build what we're looking for in order for us to be successful. Safety is the one thing that we just don't compromise on. If there's safety infractions, it's 3 strikes, you're out right away, but usually it's after 2 because they're very close in duration from one another.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we live in that. Obviously not in our, home base here, which is, our support for our skilled workers that are out in the field, but, they live in that safety culture where, you fail to lock that tag out and they just, it's really not, you could be the greatest employee there for 10 years and it's done.
Non-negotiable. PPE, the small little things that are required in order for us to just be safe. If you're missing those, you're just not going to make it.
It's interesting. I worked at a big corporate company. It was a very safety conscious railroad, big railroad. Everybody would know what it was. Safety was all the time. And of course, mostly because of the railroad workers, the engineering, the yard workers, are very dangerous out there. But that culture was brought into the office setting.
Absolutely.
Maybe to an extreme because you had to have safety briefing for a meeting like this.
Yep.
Okay, make sure you don't trip on that extension cord. But the idea was that culturally it starts. And I think for us, it's attention to detail. So
Right.
you folks that work in your office, attention to detail, doing things the right way. So that's how you can establish that.
Yeah, and if we don't do it at the top, we do the same thing in our meetings. We start with a safety bullet point for every meeting we have. Where's the exits? Where's our trip hazards? Where's the AED? Where's the muster point of the building that we're in? If we've got new guests in, where are we going to meet in the event that there's an emergency? Things like that. If we're not doing it at that level and we're asking our technicians and our more tactical employees to do that, and all of a sudden they're sitting in one of those meetings, they're saying, wait a minute, why is this important for me? But not for you.
Yeah, that's good.
That's really good. Okay, so you talked about values and purpose and mission. You started this division you built at Rocket with that. We believe in it. So just speak about how does that play into, we know attracting people to a culture is important. How about retention, culture and values and living up to those?
Yeah, it's shifted so much from the startup portion of when we started to build this business. It was really attitude and effort is what we were hiring for. Now that we're more established and more mature in our cycle of business, our team's gotten bigger. We're up to somewhere right around 60 some employees right now. We've transitioned buildings quite a few times and moved some stuff around. Really, we've had a lot of change with what we've done. So our culture, overall, the structure of it hasn't changed that much, but we've had to add things to it because we've got more people now. So as we've brought those in, it really comes down to how well do we deliver that vision to our team and what's the cadence of that. And for us specifically, that's typically a quarterly meeting, upcoming initiatives that we have, all built on that same framework of what's the culture of this team want to be. Number one, we want to make sure that our attitude and effort are where they need to be. We use be where your feet are. Let's be present in every conversation. We don't want to have people on their phones distracted when we're having meetings. Let's look them in the eyes. Very simple things. Please and thank you. Those matter. And when we speak like that at our level, our employees start to speak like that and they understand the importance of it, of truly caring, building relationships, not just internally, but that moves to external as well. So culture for us and how we establish that to maintain what we've built so far is it's a constant reminder of what's our identity going to be as Rocket Rentals. And really we want it to be a customer experience that's just second to none.
I think one of the hardest things that I've heard from a departing employee and when it really caused us to look at it, sometimes not a fit for them, right? For whatever reason. But when they say, you guys aren't living up to what you say your values are.
Sure.
And sometimes that's just, maybe it's just not true. But so retaining talent, if they know that you're saying something, but you're not doing it, I mean, is that?
Yeah, we just haven't had to deal with that yet, thankfully. In our EOS surveys and our exit interview surveys, it's very consistent that people know what our culture is. I will say my team's done a great job of delivering that down to the frontline employees of what our culture is. So thankfully, we haven't had to deal with that too much at Rocket yet at all.
How about people out there listening that, how important is that for them to retain their people?
It's one thing to say it, it's another one to have it up on the walls, but you want to make sure that you're living it out. So even when somebody isn't a great fit for us, we take it upon ourselves to take it one step further. Let us help you find the right spot for you. Really took that from Love Church, Pastor Ty. Like, we're not boxing people out. If this isn't a good fit for you, if our culture is one that doesn't align with your values, please let us know. Don't just quit, because we've got relationships. We can help you find a spot that can maintain your work position. You don't want to just quit a job unless you've got something else lined up. So let us help you find a spot to land.
Good.
And that builds credibility with that employee. I mean, it's just something that, hey, we're just not going to throw you out on the street.
We care about you.
Yeah, we care about you.
Yeah.
It's not where we are at and what we're trying to build is not a fit for everybody. It's high urgency. We've got a lot going on. We're putting out fires all day long. And sometimes we make mistakes when we hire somebody and they're not prepared for that. But let us help you find the landing spot that's going to be a great fit for you.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
No, I think as leaders, you have to get comfortable in both ways. When people leave your organization by either choice or encouragement, you've got to realize, okay, that's not necessarily a reflection on you or them, that you just have to sometimes, as you continue to build an organization, some people are just going to decide, this is where I want to be, and some people are going to decide, this isn't where I want to be, and you got to be okay with that.
Yep.
And at the same time, you got to be willing to reflect and go, okay, something's not lining up here.
Something's off.
Type thing. So, you talked about in the beginning, it's hard enough to hire people, attracting the right people. It's even more difficult to keep them. From the opportunity to offer kind of leadership development and personal growth plans, with your employees, is that something that you've started to do? Is it something, I know you do it for yourself personally, but...
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, part of the training piece that we've learned with that is we do need to get better at that with where we're at right now. We are part of Pinnacle, which is the Patrick Lencioni, which you mentioned. That's the program that we're leveraging right now. As far as our individual development for our managers, they'll go to leadership conferences. I've taken them to GLS with us a few times. We're looking to do those things collectively, also a little bit independently. If somebody has a desire to continue to grow in a specific area and they want to lean into, hey, I need more, we're not afraid to make that investment right now to get them what they're looking for. And I think that's even more important with this generation that's in the business right now. They want to learn more. A lot of that is they want to learn online. Give me the videos. So how do we get training courses for them with a program that still aligns with who we are, what we want to be, but gives them the kind of extra motivation to go out and then start applying those things into our workforce.
It's good.
Made me think about, as you were asking that, I didn't specifically answer your question as it relates to whichever one of you asked. Do people leave the company or the manager? I do believe that most of the time it is the manager. So we're really putting a large emphasis on making sure that they're equipped for those conversations. And when we see an exit interview, multiple responses that somebody didn't align with their manager, we are having that conversation to make sure that they are truly coaching their employees the way that we're asking them to.
Yeah, and I think Brett's point's a good one as well. I mean, sometimes it's just better for them. Like you said, let's find a better fit.
Yep.
But there's that always an opportunity, to be introspective and look a little bit. And
communication is just so important in that. I mean, that's the biggest thing for us is we want to over communicate. So if we're not doing that to the level that employee expects, we really do have to look and say, okay, is this an us issue? Is this a culture issue? What's in the way of us communicating? Are we too busy? Is somebody too overloaded in the tasks that they have, the responsibilities that they have, that's preventing them from being a great communicator with the employees that they're responsible for?
Yeah, that's my last question I have. And you said a lot of your guys, construction, blue collar, guys that are coming in, it's a rough environment. This is not sit around a nice coffee table.
Yeah.
And, you're out there in it. So, and a lot of the people that listen to the Skill Work Forum that we deal with are in a manufacturing space. It's got stuff you got to do.
Yeah.
You're on it. So, but you can still carry these principles regardless of what you do. Caring about people, listen to them, taking their input, developing them. I mean, that applies to all kinds of organizations, doesn't it?
Yep. It does come down for me specifically, like God's truth, right? Like his playbook is so easy for us to follow, but yet we make it so hard. And if we think about, let's be active listeners. Let's pay attention to what's going on around us. Have situational awareness in the spaces that we're at. Let's be intentional with every conversation that we have. If we do that well, again, for me, it starts in the home.
Yeah.
Like I want to lead well in my home so that I can lead well in the business place. And when things are off at home, I'm not the leader that I need to be in the business place. So I want to make sure that my relationship with the Lord is right, the relationship with my wife is right, so that I can go out and impact more people in the marketplace as well.
That's great. And, we're aligned that way as well. Our number one core values, we want to honor God in everything we do. Yep. We lead with that. And it is you're a holistic being.
Yep.
And what you do out there matters in here. So any final thoughts, Brett?
No, it's just, we really appreciate the time. It's a subject matter that I enjoy. I think it's a Groeschel quote. Everybody gets better when the leader gets better. Yeah. And so in these seats, then, pushing that down and really investing in our people. And like you said, there's so many pieces to it. Being aware and the self-awareness and listening. I love your statement, both for in the home and out of the home, be where your feet are, which in our culture, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Gen Z or a old baby boomer like me, the phones have taken over our lives.
Yeah.
So that applies to all of us to be present. And so we appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and as we wrap up here, I just also want to mention that Kevin and his wife Bree, we know personally, and they believe in taking this and investing in people's marriages. You guys do a lot of work. You're continuing to grow. God's using you in that area, investing in marriages and homes, and particularly people that lead organizations and getting that right. So I want to make sure that, you can look up Kevin and Bree Bailey. They've got a podcast. They talk about coaching and marriages, and something near and dear to my and Brett's heart as well. So that's important as well.
Yeah.
You get that right, a lot of things tend to line up.
It's so true. I mean, we get the opportunity to work with so many great executives, and it's so much fun to see a man and a wife come together, build that relationship on God's truth, and then take it into the workforce.
Yeah.
Let's go out and make disciples.
It's amazing how those companies perform really well.
So much better.
Yeah, so well. I hope this conversation, second in our series that we're talking about staffing and development, and we talked about attracting quality talent in this podcast with Kevin. Thank you for being a great guest. We talked about how do you retain it. It's an ongoing effort. Listen, a Maxwell book that I really love is 5 Levels of Leadership.
Yep.
And to move up the leadership chain, there's no way to shortcut. It takes effort. It takes intentionality. So thank you for leading by example and showing us some of those insights. We really appreciate you joining us on the Skill Work Forum. As a reminder, at Skill Work, we exist to connect our great skilled craftsmen who work with us with you, the end user out there who needs folks like the ones we provide to advance your vision, your objective, what you're trying to do as a company. So if you need help to augment your staff, reach out to us at Skillwork. We'd love to come and have a chat with you and see if we can help you. So until next time, God bless. Have a great day.
This is Brett Elliott, CEO and co-founder at Skillwork. Prior to starting Skillwork, I spent over 30 years in the food manufacturing space. From literally starting out cleaning the restrooms to becoming the maintenance manager, then the plant manager, to eventually becoming the president and owner, I've seen the manufacturing world from many perspectives. And like many of you, I've seen firsthand the growing need for higher skilled workers, while at the same time experiencing the shortage of this skilled talent. I started Skillwork to address that need. I knew the headhunter and the local temp agency models were not the solution. If you're experiencing the same shortage of talent at your facility, we would love to connect you with our team. Give us a call at 402-447-7058 or visit us online at skillwork.com.